time when people are talking about the sort of social qualities of FriendFeed, they usually compare it to sites like Twitter. And what's interesting to me is when people talk about FriendFeed's strengths and FriendFeed's weaknesses, they almost always bring up the same thing. And in particular, the fact that conversations are attached to entries on FriendFeed is brought up as one of its strengths because it fosters discussions. But it's also, I think...
Discussions.
Okay, in this case, certainly, obviously a problem. But it also can be a weakness because if you post something and you have 10,000 followers, all of a sudden what would have been a completely decentralized reaction to that post on a site like Twitter is a very centralized reaction on a site like FriendFeed. And I think what
it starts to feed on itself, and people get angrier and angrier and angrier. And my argument is that there's some tiny percentage, I mean, people being angry is like no big deal, but then there's some tiny percentage of people that are completely insane. And they see all this and they actually get angry, and then real threats in real life happen. And really that's your fault, right? I mean, it's, if something actually happens to somebody because of this mob forming on FriendFeed, which you're so perfect at creating, and something bad happens, it's your fault.
Yeah, that's obviously a relatively complex set of concepts wrapped into a simple sentence, so I'm just going to ignore what you said. But I'm going to say, though, one thing that we've realized is that our discussions work very well for normal social networks where people who aren't tech luminaries or celebrities, because they tend to have maybe 100 people that they're associated with on these social networks as opposed to the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or whatever you had. And our very centralized discussions tend to devolve a little bit when the number of followers is so large that they tend to sort of turn into sort of the soapbox discussions that you see on TechCrunch comments and YouTube comments and all the other sort of more contentious areas of discussions on the internet. So we've talked a lot about how we can improve this because we've definitely optimized the experience.
So you do admit there's a problem, first of all, that there's a problem with mobs forming on FriendFeed.
I don't think we talk about it in those terms exactly, but I think what we do talk a lot about and measure sort of the quality of discussions on our site, and it's something that we really care about. And we have noticed that, like, for people with very few or extremely large numbers of followers, the discussions aren't great. And so we spend a lot of time saying, how can we properly fragment the discussions so that, for people like you who have tens of thousands of followers, the conversations are useful and meaningful.
Not anymore, because I deleted my account.
That's true.
Which I found you have an extremely efficient method for deleting accounts. I expected some kind of back and forth, like, are you sure? And it was like, no, gone, done, deleted. And I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah, well, give users what they want. And so we spent a lot of time, though, talking about how to improve the discussion mechanism, and I certainly think it's a problem. We haven't had too many complaints beyond your incident about mobs specifically, but I do completely agree. I understand what you went through, and it troubles us.
But you were
going
to say you agree that there's a problem. I mean, so what are you going to do specifically?
Well, there's a few practical things we plan on doing. One of the main things is some companies and public figures like yourself just want to be able to turn off comments on individual entries or turn off comments on their threads altogether.
Let's just stop this mob and make them at least disperse and go somewhere else. Yeah.
Sure, exactly. I mean, so you could essentially just turn off comments on that entry or on your feed as a whole, and it would be more like Twitter, where it's just your entries and no one's reactions to them, and perhaps just likes, because that's pretty innocuous. Yeah. So that's one of the most practical things we're going to do. Beyond that, we have a number of ideas, but I would say they're pretty much need to be tested before I talk about any of them because they're pretty high level.
Like what are some of those? I mean, why not? I mean, look, these are your fans. These are users.
Just as an example, if let's say you're following Barack Obama on FriendFeed and there's a post about some policy that comes from the White House blog, that's going to have a lot of different reactions from both sides of the political spectrum. What might be more useful there is just seeing the comments from your friends and viewing that discussion through the lens of your social graph, because in that case, normally these social networks are fragmented by the people you're subscribed to, but in this case, Barack Obama is like a super connector. Yeah. He's not really your friend. And the discussions on FriendFeed are optimized to be split up by social networks, so you're talking with people you actually know and that would naturally make your discourse maybe a little more civil. And so that's one of the things that we've talked about.
So you're going to test a variety of things to slow down and disperse the mob when they start to get those torches burning.
I prefer not to refer to our user base as the mob, but yes, other than that.
How about the syphilis analogy? Do you like that one?
I thought it was a creative way to get some headlines.
Robert, what do you think about this?
I think, first of all, the real-time web is coming to your comment area. In the afternoon session, you're going to see some new technology that's going to bring the real-time web right into your comments, and that's going to bring this problem into other places. I think you were right that there is a mob mentality, and I think we caused it. We caused it by gathering a huge crowd and sort of having a sports mentality where we like to have debates. We're both passionate people. You've gotten into it with the country of France, and that causes a lot of people to get passionate about what you're saying and who you're saying it to, and they're going to get in the bleacher seats and throw some rotten tomatoes once in a while.
So, Robert, to sum up, you agree completely with what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, great. So I think we have agreement. So we've agreed that I'm right, and that you agree there's a problem with mobs, and you're going to make changes. Robert, we don't actually know what he said.
Yeah, it was a little fuzzy.
I think you were saying I'm right. Well, I'll tell you, I want to give something back too. So what we're gonna, since you're giving and you're gonna like, try to get these mobs under control that are roaming around FriendFeed and causing havoc, I'm going to reinstate my FriendFeed account.
Great.
All right.
Of course, I'm going to need TechCrunch back. So
we
somebody
can
took
work
it.
that out
So
for
we
you.
need to get rid of whoever that is, and they need to be okay. Great. So great, Robert. Everybody's happy. Okay. Great.
That's good.
Thanks very much.
Let's have some lunch.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay. Wait. No.